So I'm gonna start recording because because I need to. Because I need to get it out and I don't know what it is. So just gonna start recording in order to just get into the flow, back into the flow. I I feel like I don't know where to start. I'm I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling um, a little kind of stuck and unsure and uncertain. I know I am here for a reason. I know that I want to help raise the collective consciousness. I know that, I want to like help humanity, right? Like, um, help people unblock their heart so they can feel the love that's inside them and then share it with those around them, which will in turn help raise the collective consciousness, right? The butterfly effect. One person makes a change and it reverberates out to everyone, or the ripple effect, right? And I know on my own personal journey, when I think as far back as I can remember to 3 or 4 years old when my parents got divorced. And one of my first memories is being scared shit sitting in the courtroom because I guess maybe like my mom didn't have babysitting or whatever, so I had to be there. Um, and just the lessons that I've learned, the wisdom that I've at least I believe that I've gained through all of my life experiences and ups and downs. Um, and books that I've read and ways that I've learned to cope and deal and try to figure out and find answers for myself, because there were just so many times where it was like there's got to be a better way. There's got to be more to this, like, life. When I was 16, I did not want to live anymore. I didn't see the point. And I do think that a huge part of continuing and going through everything that I've gone through, and not that it was like so bad, but it wasn't great. I know that it could have been way worse, and there are people that have dealt with abhorrent, abhorrent, horrible, terrible, tragic things. So we all have our path. Um, and I've been through some tough stuff. Um, and now at 49, I can genuinely say that I understand that, and through all the learning that information, books and stuff that I've read, that I genuinely feel and believe that it's all happening for us. And it's a matter of the label that we put on things that makes it good or bad, right? Like, so many things that I've read as far as kind of like law of attraction and even like quantum physics, right? Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. One of the trainers, the lead trainer, master trainer, I think is her actual title, in a leadership course that I did. She wrote a book, and it's not the problem that's the problem. It's how we see the problem that's the problem, right? Every event that happens is neutral in our life. It's a matter of what our ego mind says about it that then causes us to have a reaction to it, right? So it's like, oh, that's bad. And so, you know, the, uh, the subsequent feelings ensue because it's labeled bad, or that's good. And then you're like, oh, that's amazing, right? A lot of stuff that I have learned fairly recently, actually, from through Michael Singer's work, who wrote The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered. He has a podcast, like, highly recommend. Um, he talks about just kind of like, that voice in our head. And, Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but in The Power of Now and A New Earth, he talks about, the ego. And I mean, for the longest time, I thought I was crazy because of those voices in my head, right? And not not meaning like the voices, but we have voices in our head. We absolutely do. And it's so comforting to hear these, spiritual teachers and highly educated people writing these books and talking about the voice in your head. And it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't crazy all this time. um, and detaching from it, right? Not being so identified with it, and not making that voice who we are, not getting so confused in that identity, right? And believing what that voice says. Because for so freaking long, like, I was brutal to myself. I was so hard on myself. I beat myself up so much. Like, I used to say that, like, I was my own worst mean girl. Like, I was so mean to myself. And I'll never forget, I want to say it was probably about 4 years ago now. I was working in finance, and I had changed roles, and I was about like 6 months or so in this new role and had my like review. And I had been in finance for, I don't know, 14 years at that point. And like the three categories for the review was exceeds expectations, meets expectations, or needs improvement. And in all of my career, all of working, like, I never got a needs improvement. I always got meets expectations. I think once I got exceeds, but it was like super hard to get exceeds expectations. Um, you had to really, like, essentially kill yourself, kind of, like give your pinky. Anyway, or at least in my opinion. And being in this new role, this was my second review, I think, and I got a needs improvement. And I was like rocked by it. I was so upset. I was so disappointed in myself and frustrated. And it was in Manhattan, and I was taking the train home, and on the train ride home, I remember just sitting there and just literally begging myself. Sounds crazy when I say this out loud, but begging myself to be kind to myself. Like, it's just like, I feel like I'm a crazy person, but it's what it is, right? Human experience. And I just remember literally like being on the train and being so upset and so ready to just tear myself apart in how I should have, could have, done better, worked harder, put more into it, figured it the out, right? Like, all of the things, all the shoulds, all the not good enoughs, all of the just beating myself up, like battering myself. I was like ready. And I just remember feeling so sad deep down, like in my heart. Like, I could even cry thinking about it right now, because I just remember being like, just like begging, like, please be kind. Please be kind. Like, oh my gosh. Um, just don't tear us apart, right? Like, don't tear us down. And I say us because what I've come to learn, through like Eckhart Tolle, but really through Michael Singer's work, is that the you in there, the part of me in there that was begging to be kind, was my heart, was my soul, was my spirit. And the one that was ready to pounce and to tear me apart was my ego, was that voice in my head that was like, you're not good enough, right? That was my story always. I'm not good enough. I'm just a carpenter's daughter. Like, I don't deserve, right? Like, I mean, so many decisions now when I think about and I understand how all of that works. So many decisions that I made in life were because I believed that I wasn't good enough, that like my standard was like, here, instead of like, we're all incredible, amazing beings. Like, we're all, I believe made in the image of God, and God is love. And like, like when you start like, zooming out like that, you kind of like, wow, we are pretty freaking spectacular. But when we're caught in the voice and the head and so identified with it, like we lose touch with that spectacularness that we are, literally. Like, we are all each beautiful individuals and so unique. And like, literally, the likelihood, if you do like a search on like the likelihood of you specifically, just like me specifically, being born like to the parents that you had and having the DNA that you have and where and the location and everything, it's something like when you go back like in your family timeline, it's like 9,000 people had to exist in order for you to exist. That blows my mind. 9,000 people, and it might even be a little bit more than that actually. That's wild. Like, so many generations, right? So it's just like, holy moly, when you start thinking of it from that perspective. So, coming to understand that voice in my head and the ego, right? And how all of this physical form works, your reticular activating system, your amygdala, and like your nervous system, and like like this physical form, this like, tool that we have here, while our soul is embodied in it, having this, life experience, this physical experience. It's like, could we have a owner's manual? Like, I feel like that would be super freaking helpful for a lot of us. But apparently that's not the deal, right? We get to figure it out. And that's part of what I believe is our soul's evolution. And so when you think about it, or at least when I think about it from the standpoint and perspective of like your soul's evolution, right? The spirit, the soul that's inside me, my heart, I feel like, which is the one that was begging to be kind, right? Please be kind to me. Like, don't fucking rip me apart right now, because I did the best I could given the circumstances and everything else, right? Like, I tried. It wasn't like I didn't try in that job. And you start to kind of realize, like, whoa, it allows me to be able to put a little space between that part of me that is my soul and the essence of who I am, my being, right? Or my beingness, right? How, when I show up and I'm just myself and I'm not, I don't have the inhibitions, or I feel comfortable with, my family or whatever. I'm not worried about judgment from outside, right? And I can just be. That's my essence. That's your soul. That's your spirit, versus your ego and your mind that just stops you to protect you, right? Like, we've given the ego the job to keep us safe, keep us safe. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never been face to face with a saber-toothed tiger. So safe from what? Exactly, right? So over the years, if you think back to caveman and woman days, that was a real threat. Like survival of like the actual flesh was required. There were tigers and lions and bears. Oh my, right? That was, we our survival was was threatened. And so as we evolved in this human form, that survival instinct is still there, that like animal instinct of survival. But because we have evolved and because we're domesticated and the only cats we have are house cats, the other ones are in either the jungle or the zoo, um, we don't need to protect ourselves and survive in that way anymore. So the ego, in my opinion, has shifted to survival in our now current jungle. And the jungle would be, social media, interacting with people. And so keeping us safe looks more like don't embarrass yourself, do a good job, make sure you prove yourself to people, put on the mask, and then you look a certain way. But inside, you feel kind of empty or like you're missing something, right? There's not a sense of fulfillment in your life because it's like it's disconnected, right? It's a covering, it's a mask. So there's just been so much that I've learned, and it's hard to even put it into words. Like I had shared that I'm really like struggling to narrow down and claim my niche per se, like who's the one person that I'm speaking to. And I'm just I can't find the words. I can't it's an overall sense of I literally just want to share and help raise the collective consciousness. I know that doesn't really help me very much from a monetary standpoint, right? Like I have a coaching business and I want to be a coach and I want to help people, and I'm still talking to a huge collective, right? Like they say niche down because it's like when you're so broad, you don't talk to anybody, right? It's like you don't catch anybody's attention. So I don't know. I share all of this to say that there's a huge component of awareness around that voice in your head and what it's telling you and how much you, the I am, your spirit, agrees with that. And if you can slow down that like instantaneous agreement and you can put a little space, you can practice the pause, which I've talked about. You can put a little space between like when you have that thought and then you have like emotional reaction to it. Like you can go, if you can, with awareness, you can stop the thought or you can notice the thought and you can stop the agreement with it. And you can go, wait a second, kind of like when I was on the train and like, just please be kind. It was like, in a way, it was stopping the agreement with that negative voice about how I was so horrible and did such a bad job and should have done better and all of that, right? Like that, please be kind was just, it was like that moment, and it added a little bit of space between that instant agreement of, I'm not good enough. So, all that to say, practice awareness of our thoughts. I mean, so many people, you know, Buddha and teachings and law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, they all say it. And I guess it's just not for one person to say, right? Everybody receives their message, number one, when they're ready to hear it. And number two, sometimes something said a different way actually lands. I know that's happened to me plenty of times where I've heard the same thing two, three times over the years, whatever. And then just one day it's like whammo, it hits. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. So awareness is so important. Seeing, what your What is your mind? What is your ego mind telling you? What is it trying to protect you from and keep you safe from? And what does it look like? How does it keep you safe, right? Which really is, I feel like it's like a prison. Because now you have to be safe from this and you have to be safe from that. And you can't do this. And well, don't do that. And well, you have to look like this because then it's right. So it's like you're like always trying to make it a certain way and you just can't control it. You just can't control it all. Like it rains and then it's cloudy or it's sunny or what, right? Like you can't control the weather, right? So it's like you can't control all of the outside. Like you can only control the inside, right? We can only control ourselves. So awareness of what is your what how much power does your ego have we given it to keep us safe, and what is it doing in order to try to keep you safe? So that's my share for the day. I don't know, I hope it's helpful. I'm I want to get the message out. I want to share. I want to help people connect to their heart, and I want to help raise the collective consciousness, like I said in the beginning. And I feel like this is like my first steps into doing that. So it's messy and long and winded, and here I am. So sending you all love.